Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dirt Nap City, the show about interesting dead people. And I'm Alex, and I have here today my friend Kelly. What's up, Kelly?
Well, we're super excited. Today, we're actually doing this show live in front of an audience. We have one person here, and he's actually mixing it for us, but he's also listening, so I consider him an audience and a friend. Chris is here.
Hi, Chris. He waved. Okay, well, I thought there would be more chairs in this room, but I didn't know you would have to sit on my lap. This is a little uncomfortable.
It's a little awkward, but we
have to share a mic. I thought you'd have more than one mic here, but apparently we're doing this Aerosmith style where we're kind of, or Little Steven and Bruce Springsteen singing into one mic.
I spent so much money on downloading podcasts that I'm totally broke, and that's all I could afford. I'm sorry.
What do you think the most money anybody's ever spent on podcasts is?
I'm going to say Joe Rogan, and I'm going to say $450.
Did somebody spend $450 listening to a Joe Rogan podcast?
No, I'm going to say he spent $450 to get a second mic so he could interview people properly.
Yeah, and he's right down the street here.
Yeah, he's here in Austin, Texas. That's where we are today.
So if you're listening, which I don't know why you wouldn't be, but you already know who this person is because you've clicked on the link. You've clicked play on this little episode, but Kelly here is in the dark. He's the only one in this little universe who doesn't know who we're talking about.
Yeah, right now I am totally clueless and excited to learn.
And I don't have a lot of clues that won't give it away, so this will be a relatively short guessing session. But I'll tell you that this is an oldie but a goodie. This is somebody that entered Dirt Nap City a long time ago.
Like BC old?
No.
Okay.
No, not BC.
Like 1800s old?
No, older. This person was born in 1503 in France.
Oh, wait a minute.
You don't hear enough about the 1500s.
Especially in France. You know,
I think when you think about a long time ago, we go 20th century, 19th century, 18th century, a long time ago. Like Jesus, dinosaurs,
and then Big Bang.
Big Bang, right? That's kind of the timeline.
Or if you believe in Jesus, then Big Bang might not be appropriate.
Right. So we're talking maybe
creation time.
Everything might as well have been 200 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's kind of because I think as you get older and as society gets older, time travels faster. Have you noticed that, right?
My gosh.
You've noticed that like a year goes by so much faster than when you were 10.
I take down the Christmas decorations and the next thing you know, I'm putting them back up again.
You know why that is? Do you know the scientific reason why that happens?
Yeah, but tell me.
Because the percentage of time that a year is much smaller percentage of your life when you're older. So when you're 10 years old, 1 year is 10% of your life. But when you're 50 years old, it's like 2% of your life. And so it feels shorter.
There's also some science that shows that there's not as many milestones in the later years of your life. So kind of if you've done the same thing for the last 10 years, there's nothing to mark time anymore. And when you're a kid, you have first grade, second grade, third grade, and you have different points to mark your time. And I know when I think back at my own life, there's certain things that, you know, they were before, after the birth of my child and before, after I got married. And then there's years that just run together because there was nothing marking them.
But you know what? I have a solution, actually. I just came up with this. It's brilliant. It can help you, it can help me, and it can help everyone in our audience to have a milestone. You know what it is?
What?
It is a new episode every 2 weeks of Dirt Nap City.
Oh, wow.
If you use that as your mile marker, your time's going to slow down. You're not going to feel like time's flying by as quickly. As a matter of fact, you're going to be like, it'll be 4 more days until that episode comes out. And just like Alfred from Austin, you're going to be like, hey, I'm craving some Dirt Nap City. I'm driving down to the coast this weekend. When's the next episode coming out? And we'll say, slow down there, Alfred. You got 4 more days. But you'll appreciate the fact that we're slowing time down for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could think, I thought you were going to say, when did this happen to me? Was it before or after I listened to the Mr. Rogers episode? And that kind of is a marker of somebody's life.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you could also do that. I think you and I have started talking about our lives in terms of episodes. You know, there was pre-Andre and then post-Andre, and of course Seuss was a big one, big milestone.
The problem with that is it doesn't work when you're talking to other people because people listen to it at different times. I wish this was live. Like, I know this is live for Chris, but I wish other people could be listening at the same time.
True. Well, maybe we'll start live streaming our recording sessions.
Or maybe not.
Well, what do we got coming up today?
This guy was born in 1503 in France.
Okay, I'm going to say Jean-Pierre Jacques.
Oh, so close. Died in 1566.
So pretty old for that time period, 63 years old.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it doesn't matter.
I think life expectancies back then, that's pretty old.
And here's the one and only clue I'm going to give you.
Okay.
Is that you don't know who this person is, but he predicted this episode was going to happen.
Nostradamus.
Yeah.
All you had to say was predicted.
We're going to talk about Nostradamus. Do you know anything about him?
I didn't even know he was French.
There you go. His real name was Michel de Nostradamus. You know who Nostradamus was supposed to do, right? He was supposed to predict the future.
No idea. I don't know anything about this dude.
But you know that that's kind of his reputation, is that he was one that predicted things, right?
Yes, he was a predictor.
But you don't know who he was or what he did.
Nada.
Okay, well, this will be good then. So he was just a regular guy in France in the 1500s, just bumping around.
Eating French bread, drinking coffee, probably smoking cigarettes.
Sure. Went to college early, age 14. Went to university, as they say. But he had to leave the university. The university closed because of the plague.
Oh, the plague.
That's probably why we don't hear a lot about the 1500s, is because it was all about the plague. And the plague was way worse than COVID.
So I just heard something the other day from a little thing I was listening to with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about the plague.
Fellow podcaster.
Yeah, it was part of his podcast. He was talking about the plague, and he said the reason that the plague spread more among unmarried men, like unmarried men were more likely to die from the plague because they had more rats in their house. Oh, no, I know what it was. It was if you owned cats, then you had fewer rats, and more women than men owned cats during that time, and that's why cats are associated with witches, because people thought they didn't get the plague because they were a witch. So if you were a woman and you didn't get the plague during this time, you were labeled a witch, but it was probably because you owned a cat, and that's why we associate cats with witches.
Wow, that's really interesting. So he had to leave the university because they closed because of the plague. So he just traveled the French countryside for 8 years. And when I picture this like as a kung fu, right? You're just roaming the earth.
Looking for deeds.
As little Michel de Nostradamus. Researching herbal remedies. He was all about natural medicine. And he entered college to get his doctorate in medicine, what we'd call an MD today. But he was expelled from medical school when they found out that he had been an apothecary.
And is that like a pharmacist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently that was manual trade, being an apothecary. And that was prohibited in medical school. If you had done any manual labor,
you were out.
Plus, he was talking some trash about some physicians of the day, too. He was kind of out there saying bad things about, as pharmacists sometimes do.
You know? Yeah. I've been to their conventions.
So people still called him doctor.
Okay.
And after he got kicked out of medical school, and he went back to being an apothecary, and he even sold a pill, a rose pill that he said that would protect people against the plague.
Wow. Yeah, it turns out it's just fleas that spread the plague, and fleas were on rats. So if you just got cats.
He was running around France saying that he could cure the plague. Then he got married, and 3 years later, his wife and kids died from the plague.
Oh, man. Irony.
I know. I laughed, too, when I heard that. It's terrible.
I think that was originally part of a song by who was the woman that sang "Isn't It Ironic"?
Alanis Morissette.
Alanis Morissette.
Right.
Yeah, he died. She died 2 weeks later from the plague.
Later on, he got remarried. He married a wealthy widow And they had 6
they're the best
kids.
kind of widows.
I was going to say, if you got to marry a widow, marry a wealthy one. They had 6 kids, and then he was set. He could do kind of whatever he wanted.
How many cats did they have?
Not listed here. So he went to Italy and moved away from medicine and got focused on the occult.
Oh, nice.
As you do.
Like Blue Oyster. Sure.
And at the same time, he's focused on the occult, and he's got these herbal remedies, and he's got all the money he needs.
Wealthy widow money.
Right. The other thing that was going on at the time was the printing press had just come out.
Okay.
And so it made it easy for anybody to print anything. So it was like the Twitter of its day, right? Social media of its day, that if you had access to a printing press, you could just print books.
Yeah.
And get the word out about anything. Prior to that, only certain people, only nobility or clergy people could get books out.
It sort of democratized communication.
Sure. Before that, you probably had to have like monks writing things and copying things. Right?
They weren't writing, they were scribing.
I mean, it probably didn't completely democratize it because you still had to have enough money to have access to a printing press.
It moved it in that direction.
Sure.
It was like MySpace.
But it was exactly like social media is today, where all of a sudden...
Exactly like social media today.
Other than all that other stuff. But he could get the word out. So he had crazy ideas. He was studying the occult. He was studying kind of this fake medicine. But almanacs started to be really popular back then. And he wrote an almanac in 1550.
Okay.
And he used the Latin word for his name. So his name was Michel de Nostradamus, and the Latin word for that was Nostradamus. So that was kind of his stage name, pen name kind of thing. And he wrote almanacs every year. They were very popular. And from 1550 to 1566, he wrote an almanac every year. And I don't know if you've ever read an almanac. I used to be obsessed with almanacs when I was a kid.
I don't think I've heard of the Farmer's Almanac, and it predicts the weather, right?
Almanacs are great. They have lots of lists, they have lots of predictions and projections, and they just have all kinds of the World Almanac. I used to get that every Christmas.
So is this like a toilet reader? Like something you could just sit on the toilet and you can kind of start and stop whenever you want?
Sure. If you want to be crass.
What's crass about that?
Now, in 1550, I'm not sure being on the toilet was as pleasurable of an experience as it might be today.
Yeah,
but it was probably a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
No paper.
Yeah.
We probably don't need any more of those details, but...
Well, you had your almanac.
Maybe that's why they were so popular.
Why is there pages missing from this almanac?
Exactly. Maybe we're onto something now. But so in these almanacs, he would write prophecies. Prophecies would be predictions for the future, but they would kind of be in the form of a poem, frequently rhymed. They were usually like 4 lines, and they would be very vague, but they were prophecies. He wrote 6,338 prophecies in all, and 11 calendars, and he would come up with horoscopes, and astrology was kind of coming into vogue, and he used to write horoscopes for the kings and queens of the day. And in fact, even though most people thought he was a fake and a phony and a crazy person at the time, his biggest fan was the wife of Henry II, the king of France, Catherine de Medici, and she was a big fan of his. So most people thought he was crazy, and maybe they bought the almanacs to see kind of how crazy he was, but she loved him.
It was like buying the tabloids, the
National Enquirer, whatever. Yeah. But he was afraid this whole time that he would be beheaded for heresy. Back then, they didn't play when it came to heresy.
Yeah.
But technically, prophecy and astrology didn't meet the definition of heresy, but magic did. What he was doing wasn't magic.
Yeah.
It was just saying stupid things.
Or owning a cat during the plague.
Right. You really want to get that cat plague connection down, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they burned witches for it, right?
Right. Now, like I said, during his life, he wasn't very respected. He finally died of gout. If you got to go, though.
He said, "Hey, everybody, I'm gout." Nostradamus gout.
He died with about $300,000 in today's money,
Wow.
which, isn't bad.
Not bad.
And on the evening of July 1st, he is alleged to have told his secretary, "You will not find me alive at sunrise," which probably was his greatest prediction. The one that actually did come true, because the next morning he was found dead, lying on the floor next to his bed. Or so his secretary says.
Did he sell these? Is that how he made his money? Was by selling these almanacs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But he also had a rich widow.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure how much money he made off of these things. And I'm not sure who was buying these things. I don't think the common person was buying almanacs. I don't think they were farmer almanacs. They were basically just astrology, horoscopes.
But on parchment or on paper or scrolls.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was paper.
Do you know if any of these still exist? Like, are there any writings by?
Not only do they still exist, but there's one at the University of Texas, San Antonio, right down the street from us.
Like an original?
An original, yeah. Yeah, an almanac.
Like from that time period?
Yeah, it wouldn't be in his writing or anything. But
No,
be from
because of the printing
movable-
press.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay, but you said he was dead, or so we thought.
No, I said, so that's what your secretary wants you to. I mean, his secretary said, "Oh, yesterday he said that he would be dead by the morning. I don't know what happened."
She said that was a prediction that he made.
He.
That she said he made that prediction.
No, there was no she's in this.
The secretary. Oh, the secretary was a he.
Look at you, sexist.
Wow. So back then, men were secretaries?
Yeah, it was like his personal secretary. I think they are now, too.
Okay. Oh, like Secretary of State.
No, like his personal assistant.
Okay.
I'm just saying it's kind of funny because you could kind of murder somebody back then by saying, well, you could especially murder a
prophet.
A prophet. If you said, well, I don't know, he told me he was going to die in the morning, and look at this, he died.
Oh, and he happened to have signed over all of his
right,
300,000
what do you know?
pounds to me.
Exactly.
Dollars.
He told me he was going to do that. Here's what's funny, too, is that plagiarism, because writing was new back then, plagiarism wasn't really a thing, and it was very common. So what he would do is he would read other books with mostly religious text that had prophecies, and he would just copy that.
Ah.
And so most of what he did was cut from other people's works. Even the astrologers from back then said he wasn't doing astrology right. So he wasn't very respected by very many people. Sometimes he would take a book off the shelf and he would just write about whatever page it fell open to and just make a prophecy about that.
Would that be like somebody going to Wikipedia and getting a bunch of information and then making a podcast about the person?
Yeah. In fact, I was just going to say this, it kind of hits too close to home. This is how I decide who I'm going to talk about each week is I open a book I have a book called Famous People Who Are Dead. And then I just open it to whoever opens it, whoever it falls open to, and I talk about it. And it just shows you how, especially when you're talking about things like astrology, how it's kind of designed to be so vague that it always works for you, or fortune cookies or whatever.
Power of suggestion.
Right. And you discount the things that don't have anything to do with you, and then you kind of stretch the things that might have something to do with you.
Or you add the words "in bed."
There you go. Most of the prophecies that he talked about had to do with disasters. They weren't mundane things. They would have to do with disasters. And every time there's been a disaster in our lifetime, it seems to somebody find some passage that Nostradamus wrote that you could make about any disaster.
So he just predicted a disaster on every day for like 400 years. And then on the days when it actually happens, it lines up.
Well, he actually was weirdly specific. He said that his prophecies only extend to the year 3797. After that, you're on your own.
3797.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So,
Is that the end of days?
No. Well, No, but every now and then somebody says that he predicted that. The Mayans that thought the world was going to end in 2012, they said that Nostradamus said that too. There's just such mystery and such vagueness to his writing that you could make any year kind of seem like it's the end. The key was that he used Latin words and double meanings. Nobody ever talks about a Nostradamus prediction before it happens. Everybody always talks about, see, look what he said about this.
Right.
And nobody's, you better watch out next year because Nostradamus predicted something was happening. But every time we have a disaster, they seem to say, oh, yeah, he predicted this. So here's some of the things they said that he predicted. The Great Fire of London, the French Revolution, the rise of Napoleon, the rise of Hitler, both world wars, the nuclear destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the moon landing, the Challenger disaster, the death of Princess Diana, 9/11, and COVID-19.
Wow.
Now, most of those things, they've all happened since 1566 when he died.
They fell in that.
But almost
gap.
all those things have happened in the last 100 years, haven't they?
Okay, but like, do you actually have the verbiage about, say, Princess Diana?
Yeah, we'll get. I don't have that one, but we'll get into some of this here.
All right.
So he started getting popular in 1947. There was a book written called The Complete Prophecies of Nostradamus, and it was published 7 more times over the next 40 years. So really, that's 400 years after he died. So that's why a lot of these 20th century and 19th century things were things that he predicted, and not a lot before that. There was an incredible academic backlash over this, that people that actually went and studied this guy say it's what I was describing before. They call retroactive clairvoyance.
Or revisionist history.
Well, sure. Retroactive clairvoyance basically means, now that it happened, that he predicted it. But if it was really spot on, we could predict something. We could
it would say, Nostradamus predicted the great snowpocalypse in 2021 in Texas.
Right. And exactly. They also say that the translation is very poor, and that if you know anything about 16th century French, it wouldn't make as much sense as you think. Like, there's a lot of leaps that people have to make this stuff make sense.
But it works because nobody knows much about 16th century French.
Exactly. Except me.
Yeah, that was my major.
In 1981, there was a documentary out called The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, and it was narrated by Orson Welles. And that, you may remember that when I was a kid. Do you remember the TV show called In Search of?
Yeah.
With Leonard Nimoy?
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff he loved. He would love talking about kind of the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and Nostradamus. Kind of an early predecessor to our show here.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Simpsons episode where Homer predicted the end of the world?
Yes.
And it didn't happen, and everyone got mad at him. And the comic book guy said, "Hey, Nostradamus, did the rapture come? I can't recall. Oh, in fact, I can recall, and it didn't, and you suck."
Worst prediction ever.
Yeah, Nostradamus. So here's an example of the 9/11 passage where he predicted 9/11, all right?
All right.
And this is translated into English. So
from 16th century French.
And it probably would have rhymed, right?
Yeah, okay.
So this is the idea of the kind of thing that they go, "Oh my gosh, he predicted 9/11." All right, here it is. 45 degrees the sky shall burn. To the great new city shall the fire draw nigh. With vehemence the flames shall spread and churn, when with the Normans they conclusions try. That's it.
Wow. Just those 4 lines.
So they're like,
6 lines.
45 degrees. Well, the latitude of New York City is 40 degrees and 47 minutes. That's close to 45 degrees.
Yeah.
It's not 45 degrees. And then the great new city. Oh,
New York.
Well, it turns out there's lots of cities in the world that have like that new city kind of.
Yeah.
In fact, Naples means new city as well. So anything that bad that happens in Naples, they also claim this line. So there's a lot of, you see how it's not like he wrote down there'll be 2 towers that are hit by airplanes and
right. Well, they didn't have airplanes, but yeah.
But if he was predicting things, he should have known that too.
Yeah. Okay. So you doubt his clairvoyance. Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah. Well, if you know, if you've been listening to this show, and I'm not sure if you have, I'm skeptical about most things that have to do with. I think there was an episode we talked about ghosts, maybe on Harry Houdini.
Yeah, Houdini.
I'm skeptical about all this stuff, but the thing that's important, I think, is that people do believe it. And in World War II, the Germans actually tried to capitalize on the fact that people did believe this. The Germans dropped leaflets over France in World War II saying that Nostradamus had predicted that France was going to lose the war. So just give up now.
Wow.
Because it's ordained. He already predicted it was going to happen. And Hitler and Goebbels actually believed this. They fell for it, even though it was propaganda. They fell for it.
Right.
They believed it.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna go to all that trouble and you don't believe in it, then why go to all the trouble?
But
right?
then the Americans figured this out, and then we started dropping leaflets on Germany saying, no. It was just the opposite. They said you guys were going to lose.
Yeah,
and
you'll all die in a fiery 540 degrees in a fiery crash.
Right. So.
Didn't the Germans also try to steal the Ark of the Covenant?
Yeah,
the Nazis.
Yeah, that was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, that was true, right?
I don't know.
No,
I don't know. It's a different episode. Now, some people say he even predicted climate change. Let me hit you with this rhyme.
Okay.
For 40 years, the rainbow will not be seen. For 40 years, it will be seen every day. The dry earth will grow more parched, and there will be great floods when it is seen.
I mean, that does sound like kind of what's going on today, dry earth and floods. And I guess, and interesting that they picked 40, because 40 was always big in the Bible, right? The 40 days and 40 nights of rain from Noah, 40 days or 40 years lost in the wilderness. Was he a Christian? Did he believe, was he Catholic, I suppose?
He was Catholic. In fact, his family was Jewish, and I think his grandfather had converted, and that's how they got the name De Nostradamus, which means of Our Lady. So they kind of picked their name, the Nostradamus. Yeah, but he was very Catholic.
Okay, yeah. So the 40 days and 40 nights and all that sort of thing kind of fits in there. Yeah, I mean, but again, the vagueness of it is a little bit hard to get past.
That's what's great.
As far as saying. Yeah.
Let me tell you the one where he predicted Hitler. In the mountains of Austria near the Rhine, there will be born of simple parents. That's how it starts. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the other part, it says, the greatest part of the battlefield will be against Hister. And people are like, Hister? He means Hitler. Well, Hister was another name for the Danube River. But
maybe that was more about climate change.
But they're like, oh, that's close enough. He said Hister, that might as well mean Hitler.
Yeah.
Stuff like that,
it is interesting, the psychology of people, because I think when you plant a seed, I've realized something about myself. For example, right now, Chris is mixing this on a Rodecaster Pro 1. It's a little mixer designed for podcasting. I saw the Rodecaster Pro 2, and I was kind of intrigued because it has some cool features. You can make your voice sound like a robot. That's really cool, right? How cool would it be right now if I just sounded like a robot? But we don't have the right equipment to do that. So what do? I go on to YouTube and I start watching reviews about the Rodecaster Pro 2, and I start justifying in my head. I'm like, oh, I'm going to watch this review to tell me if it's any good or not. I've already decided I want it, right? And so all they're doing is reinforcing what I want to believe. That's where I'm going with this.
Right. Is confirmation bias.
Oh, yes, I like that. So confirming it's like watching MSNBC or Fox News, right? You're just confirming what you already believe. Well, hey, what's his name said it, so it must be true. That's interesting because it sounds like he was an early user of that. Like he understood how to make people believe things that were things they already believed.
And with his history of kind of being a medicine show guy, selling rose pills to beat the plague, kind of had a history of kind of that hucksterism, the the Barnum and Bailey, a sucker born every minute kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I see where that was. I think he knew exactly what he was doing, but I don't think he knew that in 400 years people would be using every. I mean, he was a kook at the time.
I don't think anybody at that time thought about the world 400 years from now.
No,
I mean,
they don't now. Definitely don't now.
Well, I mean, except for maybe sci-fi. We look at Blade Runner.
No, but we don't create things for consumption in the future.
Oh, they're still going to be listening to Dirt Nap City 400 years from now.
People other than us.
Yeah, we're the Nostradamus of our time. That's the plural.
Listen to this one. I want to give you this one and tell you. Well, I'll tell you the rhyme, or it's not really a rhyme, but I'll tell you they call it a quadrain.
Okay.
But here we go. And you tell me what you think it's talking about.
Okay.
The two contenders will unite together when most others unite with Mars. The African leader is fearful and trembles. The dual alliance is separated by the fleet.
Huh. It sounds like an election, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like two people going against each other in an election. Was it now?
I'll tell you what people right now are saying that refers to is Elon Musk.
Oh, because he's the African.
Because he's South African.
Yeah.
And it talks about Mars.
Yeah.
And that's all they need is for those two parts about Africa and Mars. And they go, oh, it's clear they're talking about Elon Musk.
Right.
Even though it really makes no sense. But if he does something, so people say, oh, the two contenders will unite together. Elon Musk has a relationship with Russia, and they're trying to be in cahoots. And it's right there in the readings. All you have to do is read it.
Well, it's funny because when you initially asked me what it meant, my brain's going around. I'm trying to figure something out, say something clever. But then as soon as you start giving an explanation about it, it's sort of cements it in my head. Oh, wait, you're right. That is Elon. Oh, how could I be so stupid not to see that?
Here's one that hasn't been attributed to anything, but I just kind of like the way it sounds. So I'll give you one.
Okay, I'll tell you what it means.
I don't know if anybody has ever said it means anything, but here's one. You tell me what it means.
I will.
The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth will swim with blood. The face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground.
So look at the second word, Trump, right? So I think that Donald Trump is going to eventually be in a boxing match with Lindsey Graham. We're going to have like a death match, cage match kind of thing. And the bloody mouth will be the punch received and the punch given.
And then what about the milk and honey?
Yeah, that's Lindsey Graham holding up the triumphant trophy where milk and honey is spilling over into his mouth.
Yeah, and it was all right
shirtless.
there. Nostradamus predicted that. How could you not have seen this?
Yeah. No, I mean, again, Trump was the second word, obvious.
So I kind of got into this, Kelly, and I kind of decided that I was going to leave something. So right now,
you're going to do a prediction?
I'm going to do a prediction.
Okay.
And in 400 years, people out there of the future, I'm talking to you. In 400 years,
find our kids and tell us.
I'm not going to tell you exactly.
Tell them if we were right.
I'm not going to tell you exactly what I'm predicting, but I'm going to give you to it in the form of this quadrain. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Here we go. On nigh it appears that a man with sheep's clothing will inherit much wealth from an ox's loathing, but he too will reign on high from the epic sleigh they call Orion.
I got shivers, man.
Yeah.
I got shivers.
It also sounds like a Rush song, maybe.
It's like side 2 of Farewell to Kings.
Yeah.
Like you never really listened to it, but when you did.
This could be Rush lyrics.
On
really.
Ron. Wait, will you read it one more time?
On nigh it appears that a man with sheep's clothing will inherit much wealth from an ox's loathing, but he too will reign on high from the epic sleigh they call Orion.
Okay, I've got it. Steve Irwin is coming back to life.
Oh, wow.
He will be reborn by technology. They're gonna basically inject the venom. What's it called? The antidote to the venom into him
in 400 years.
Bring him back to life, and then he will actually at that time. We won't have any more synthetics because we'll have realized they're bad for your skin. He'll be wearing sheep's clothing, which is like wool. and then he will actually reign on high because he'll hop in a spaceship and fly up into space.
Wow. Yeah. And if it happens, you could say I called it.
Well, you predicted it, and then I interpreted.
All right. Well, that's all I got for Nostradamus today, Kelly.
Wow. That was I feel like this was one of our densest episodes.
Dense.
And I don't mean dense in the dumb way. I mean dense in the lots going on way.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, like some other people that we've had, not really, I wouldn't even say appreciated, not really a famous person in his time.
Yeah, but everybody's heard of him.
Everybody's heard of him. I bet you if you ask people in France in the 1500s about a podcast in 400 years, they'd be like, why are you doing that guy? He's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's probably people on Twitter that are just as crazy that will be getting their own episodes in the future.
We should look and see if there is a Nostradamus subreddit.
That where people are making predictions or talking about him?
Both.
There's definitely a lot of chatter about his predictions and applying them every time there seems to be, like I said, COVID-19. Every time there's something that comes out, people look back. And there's a lot of fake Nostradamus things where people said, oh, look, I think the thing with Princess Diana was actually a fake. There was nothing that he really predicted, but people make things up and they do like I just did and make it sound.
Yeah. It's got that sort of weird, you got to reference something about space. You got to have some reference about an animal. You got to have some reference about pain or blood.
Leave a lot of room for double meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then claim that it's clear. It's and like you said, if you want to believe enough, he can make anything fit these things.
And I have a prediction that in 2 weeks, there will be another awesome episode of Dirt Nap City, and people should come back. Don't you think?
Yeah, that'd be great. 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. Post them on Thursdays.
That's right. So don't be Nostradamus. Be sure to subscribe and download all the episodes. Alex, that was awesome. Thank you for teaching me. I do feel like I said, I learned a lot. I'm probably going to listen to this one 3 or 4 more times so I can commit it to memory.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, so quiz me in about a week.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And until next time on Dirt Nap City, the show about interesting dead people. Goodbye.
See you later.